Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having a look at a very special and incredibly unique aircraft, rich in history as well, certainly in the UK. Welcome to a preview of JustFlight's new Vulcan Mark II bomber coming very soon to Microsoft Flight Simulator. A remarkable piece of engineering, a delta wing all-metal strategic bomber which saw service in the Cold War. And this aircraft right here is the livery and registration used in Operation Black Buck, which was a series of long-range missions during the Falklands War. A remarkable bit of history when you read the stories. One of the three V-bombers of its time, the Valiant, the Victor and the Vulcan. Part of the UK's nuclear deterrent force throughout the 60s and the 70s. There are versions of this preserved. One at Wellesbourne, I think one at Doncaster, Sheffield as well, I believe. And XM655, which this add-on is based on, was the third from last Vulcan to be produced for the Royal Air Force. Of course, an incredibly important role and rich in aviation history too. Throughout this preview video we're going to be exploring some of its features, listening to the sounds and taking it for a very short flight here out of Freeware RF Scampton airport scenery. There is also one for Waddington as well and a few other airports that this was used at and based at. I'm curious to hear your thoughts too, so hit like and subscribe and share your own opinion down in the comments below. First off, before we look at the rest of the cockpit area here, we'll have a little look at the EFB, and there are a number of different options allowing you to customize the aircraft based on what kind of flying you might be doing. And JustFlight have also provided an EFB manual which is part of the product, and it allows you to have a look at the map, view charts and all that sort of thing as well, tweak different aircraft states and allow you to change your configuration based on your own preference. Various loadouts are able to be selected within the load bay from Mark 13 bombs, which are unguided 1,000-pound bombs, the Whiskey Echo 177 nuclear bomb, which is this, Blue Steel, a nuclear standoff missile, which we saw just a moment ago, as well as maritime radar reconnaissance pods, saddle tanks, cylinder tanks, and anti-radiation Shrike missiles too. And then there's a button for unloading all, which allows you to just unload all of those payload options from the aircraft. There are different options available within the aircraft's EFB as well, so doors and equipment wise, we look at ground power, toggling on and off the Vulcan ground power unit, which provides us with power on the ground. Pelluced, which is a compressor used to provide compressed air to the engine air starter motors, facilitating engine starting whilst on the ground, and those are down here. And we can take the chocks and the covers off as we see fit. And we can also close that crew door entrance by toggling it like so. We'll wander past underneath the aircraft. Beautiful model that they've created here, to have a little look at the ground power unit working away. In the EFB settings cog as well, you've got things like state savings, sync altimeters, which I have on. I recommend leaving that on, folks. You can toggle cockpit pilots on and off, allow realistic steer of the aircraft, and also toggle on the auto shoot jettison, which is what I've done today. GPS navigation is toggleable too, and what it will do is give you this little GPS unit mounted to the right hand side of the stick to allow you to use a GPS unit in flight. The drop menu there brings up the ability for you to change your fuel on board the aircraft. If you have auxiliary tanks inside the bomb bay as well, you can change the tanks there too. The AAPP, which is it's like the APU of the Vulcan, that has its own small little power supply and fuel source, and air-to-air refueling, K2 offload as well, options there within this little tab. The little microphone allows you to change between comms quite easily. Just pop different TACANs and frequencies in. As you can see though, a very crude flight deck. as it was in its day, though to be fair, incredibly advanced for its time as well, and beautifully replicated by the JustFlight team. It's a very complex flight deck. The manual is huge. It's over 150 pages in size, possibly slightly larger than that, but it will give you a really good idea of how everything works on this aircraft, from air conditioning and oxygen systems through to electronics, through to fuel, and then the aircraft as well, along with checklists for start, takeoff, so on and so forth. Because this was a nuclear deterrent as well, a part of the Strategic Nuclear Defence Force of our Royal Air Force back in the day, it also had these big sliders here, so that the idea was if they deployed a nuclear weapon, the flash would be so bright it could brighten the pilots, so they would have these big old sliders that would allow you to come down, darken the flight deck environment massively. And JustFlight have added a lot of that in as well, like so. And with it, you end up with a very dark environment, don't you? And it's a very narrow field of view. How they used to operate this in real life is just mesmerising. I've got fond memories of it personally, flying overhead at an air show at RAF Cosford years ago, one of the last displays it ever did. And I remember as they lit the afterburners and roared over the airfield, it literally shook the ground below us. It's just a wonderful machine, really impressive, incredible. Those of you who love aviation, this is the sort of aircraft that's just, it blows your mind. I'm going to work through the checklists to get the engines started. We'll have a little look at the lights, listen to the sounds, and we'll take her for a spin. Not going to go too in depth for the preview video, of course, with all the checklists, because it's the sort of thing that would take a long time to sort out, and I would just want to give you guys a real flavour for what to expect with this wonderful, wonderful aeroplane. And this aircraft has a rapid start function, or you can have a normal start. Rapid start will be used for scramble. You know, the mission's got the green light and you've got to get all the engines on, get airborne ASAP. One of its capabilities is part of it being a nuclear deterrent aircraft, and we're going to use that to get all of the engines started at the same time. Now, during this, we would ordinarily be watching the oil pressure rising, watching the fuel flow, the JPT, making sure fire warnings are out, and waiting for that start indicator light, which is in the aircraft's cockpit, to go out above 22 RPM according to 22% RPM according to the checklists. But we're going to listen to the sounds and have a little listen on the outside. Now with that, clearance to start is obtained, throttle set to 50%, air selector switch has been set to rapid, ignition switches are on, engine master switches are on. Engine air switches are all shut, and rapid start, press. Here we go. A little howl at the start, wow. From the inside then. All of our engine displays are down in the middle here. Along with various warning lights all along the top. And Here she is at sundown, just prior to taxi, just so you guys can see all of the emissives here. And its epic presence as well, with that lighting in the backdrop. I think we're ready for an inaugural flight. So, as we taxi out then, having a look at the vision from the flight deck, it must have been so claustrophobic in real life to be operating one of these. And this is one of the things that flight simulation certainly can give you a really good appreciation of when an aeroplane's developed well. It gives you a proper idea of what it is like, or what it would have been like in order to operate these aircraft in real life. Certainly under the pressure as well that these pilots were facing. After takeoff, we need to do a couple of things. One of those is flicking this guard up and moving the takeoff cruise selector from the takeoff position to cruise. Okay, just about see the refuel probe from that close-up view. The suspension dipping away there just as I'm tapping the brakes, and then we're going to line up here on the runway at Scampton. Such a cool aeroplane, isn't it? So for takeoff, we want to have a look at our total weight. This drinks the juice, but we'll call it 176,000 pounds. And within the checklists, that gives us a rough rotation speed of about 145 knots and an initial climb speed of 155 knots as well, approximately. It also has pattern speeds, so if we were to fly a circuit today, then we would be flying the pattern at 180 knots. And our approach speed at this weight will be 166 knots to cross the threshold at 150 knots. Okay, so brakes are off. Just going to make sure the nose is lined up and the nose wheel is straight. Just going to hold it on the brakes. We're going to spool up from the outside. And release the brakes. Accelerating away really rapidly. 100 knots. 130 knots. Nose is starting to come up itself, and just now getting airborne. Gear up. Yeehaw. What a remarkable jet this is, my goodness. I'll just do a little right turn in the climb here just to show you guys the belly of the aeroplane climbing away. Back in the flight deck, 200 knots already, my goodness. 3,000 feet and climbing. 4,000 foot per minute here. If I roll the throttles back ever so slightly, we'll pop that back to the cruise selector now as well. Is we'll just bring the nose down. 7,000 feet, my goodness. I'm just trying to gauge our climb speeds and stuff against the primary flight display and our vertical speed indicator as well, just to get it to trim itself nicely here in cruise, roughly around 8,000 foot. I'm not going to chase it too much in this case, but those sounds, just incredible. So, in relation to those sounds that we can hear, it's an almost completed sound set for the Olympus 301 engines that they've recorded from X-Ray Mike 655 earlier this year. The only kind of bit they've not implemented yet are the flight passive sounds, obviously because there isn't a real-world version of flying at this point in time, sadly. You might notice there's no howl in the aeroplane as well. The Olympus 201 engines had this really distinctive howling noise. The 301s didn't have those. So they're currently working on the 201 sound set to include that iconic howl. They're just not ready to show that on the preview version just yet. However, what it does mean is we've got some more exciting stuff to look forward to with the progression of this aircraft. And more updates to come from the JustFlight team. That's just stunning, isn't it? Fuel consumption as well is still being tweaked at the minute, and the autopilot is going to be tweaked too. Additionally, there are going to be some additional 8K textures available that you might want to make use of. In relation to that nose lifting off during takeoff, they have said that that is normal in the real aircraft too, and ideally I would have kept a little bit of forward pressure to hold that nose wheel down in contact with the ground until we get that rudder rotation, rudder authority, and then at rotation speed just releasing the column control column back to a neutral position to allow the aeroplane to begin to gain momentum, nose up to get airborne. Climb techniques, 93% RPM, 250 knots to 20,000 feet, and then a maximum of 95% RPM 300 knots until the speed coincides and matches with Mach decimal 6. It's going to release, and this is a really big, exciting price point for you guys. It's going to be releasing on roughly the 28th of November, and an incredible price of £27.99, which is about 30 euros or 33 US dollars, depending on where you are in the world. And it's going to initially be sold exclusively on the JustFlight website, and then eventually releasing via third-party resellers and marketplace. For both PC and Xbox, though, at the moment, certainly with the state of the marketplace, they can't provide any exact dates for marketplace release. That noise, wow! It climbs almost effortlessly, doesn't it? The JustFlight team have also created a load of interactive checklists, so if you are getting used to the aeroplane and learning it, you can work through the interactive checklists to flick your way through various different modes to get the aircraft set up as you wish. And you might also think, my goodness, it flies like a fighter jet. Well, that's because it kind of did. They did a lot of research into this and went through real operating kind of feedback and looked at manuals and all the rest of it. And yeah, it operated and worked very much like a fighter jet. Now, you might also think, how fast can it climb? Well, it has the ability, because the engines are so powerful and the aircraft is so incredibly designed, so incredibly well designed, I should say, that it can climb, brakes off at the end of the runway to 40,000 feet with a full internal fuel load in just 10 minutes, which is just incredible, isn't it? What an experience this must have been. Round we go, down towards the farms. All the farmers will be getting their shotguns. It's a rather nice mansion house. We'll zip past these wind farms just up here. We're doing at the minute 220 knots. Let's whack it up a little bit. We'll do 250, I think. 500 feet. Oh, look at that shadow. Yes. Let's get that back. Just move across slightly. Woohoo! Look at that. That's incredible. How stunning is that? So manoeuvrable. Watching the power lines. They've also simulated the pressurization systems in the aeroplane. So if you want, you can do an emergency depressurization. You can open the bomb doors in flight as well to simulate all of that stuff. There we go. This is brilliant. So good. If you've seen one of these at an air show in real life as well, share your stories down in the comments below. If you perhaps were an engineer on them in the past, or have got fond memories in whatever circumstance, do tell in the comments. Really interested to hear what you have to say in relation to this. And if you're looking at purchasing it as well, do let us know in the comments below as well. The links, of course, to the JustFlight website will be in our description for the video. If you want to get your hands on this, you'll be able to do so via the JustFlight website. I think it's time to try and get her on the ground. We're going to make use of these engines. They're remarkably powerful. Do a little 180. Still accelerating. And over the curve we'll idle the engines as well. This is such good fun. I want to take it around the Mach loop at some point. That's the noise of the speed brakes behind us being deployed, and we're just going to fly visual back to Scampton. What a beautiful aeroplane this is. It does have an autopilot as well, so if you wanted to use a little bit of automated flight you can do so. It doesn't have an auto throttle, however, something to bear in mind. But much like the CRJ and the BAE 146 and these other aircraft without an auto thrust, it's fairly simple to kind of deal with. It can fly ILS approaches as well. Over the threshold then we're going to want to make sure that the air brakes go from a medium drag into a high drag mode, and we just got to remember those weights that we mentioned as well earlier for rough approach speed. There are over 15 liveries available for this, various different options including the white anti-flash paint scheme that was on the Vulcan, this black buck one as well, and lots of others, including one that was based in Akrotiri with a kiwi painted on it. I've actually got the aircraft trimmed quite nicely here. Throttle set, not really moving that too much, and I've worked through the checklist to sort out some of our descent and approach checks too. Now you can see RF Scampton there on the map, so we're probably going to join ever so slightly off an approach path, we'll just head over the centre of the runway and then we'll brake into the downwind, into base, and then touch down. There's the runway. RAF Scampton was the home of the Red Arrows, also the home of the Vulcan at some point back in yesteryear. The freeware for this, RAF Waddington as well, RAF Shawbury, a couple of other military airfields are all available on flightsim.to for free, which is rather nice. Okay, so being the runway. Speed's coming off, 800 feet will do nicely I suppose for now, and coming down to pattern speeds. That's the speed brake out in a medium drag setting, and gears coming down. Continuing the turn on to final then, we've got gear down and the lift spoilers in medium drag. It's quite difficult with this huge pillar in the way actually. It must have been so tricky for these guys to fly these approaches in real life. Speed wise, it's kind of easy to predict what the aeroplane's going to do, which is quite nice. Just hope I've lined up here. I've overshot slightly, but we've got time to recover. Just going to sort our speed out as well. .160 for approach, that's good. That's looking a bit more like it. Because it handles like a fighter jet, it's actually quite nimble and very forgiving. On to 04. Spoilers go all the way out. Touchdown. And there goes the chute. And there you have it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video previewing the JustFlight Vulcan, coming very soon to Microsoft Flight Simulator at an incredibly good price point as well. It's really enjoyable to fly, brings back some memories of air shows as a kid as well, and I can highly recommend it. It's a great bit of fun as well. Certainly at the price point they've brought it out at, it'd be crazy not to, wouldn't it? I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. Hit like and subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope to see you in a live stream in the very near future. But in the meantime, as always, thanks very much for flying along, and I'll see you soon. Take care.